The first card I got was the Sun. It's funny because we talked about this earlier.
The sun, yeah.
So there's a sense of a strong yes. Uh, I have the Four of Pentacles, which is a card of holding ground, holding steady. And then the Ten of Wands is a card of having a lot to think or a lot of burden. And so, in other words,
Hello, everyone. Today I'm super excited to welcome Psychic Nate onto the Celestevolve Podcast. Welcome, Nate. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And of course, thank you so much for having me on this show.
Absolutely. It's my honor, Nate. I came across your video where you were giving predictions about 2025, what to expect, and that was packed with information. It was very entertaining, actually, as well, reading it and watching it. So, Nate, can you tell us a little bit about your background? What inspired you to get on the journey that you're on right now?
Yes, of course. So it started very, very young. Even as a child, I was very fascinated and interested by, anything related to the esoteric world, the divination. And I remember being, 7, 8, 9 years old, already pulling cards. I remember very well, it was like just a regular deck of playing cards, right? And I remember, using books and trying to learn, the meanings of the different cards and making predictions to my family, to friends. And those predictions happened to come true. So that was already kind of my first connection here. And then I've had significant experience during, between like 10 years old and let's say 18, during the teenagers years, where I was getting flashes. I saw significant event before they occurred. I saw people, a sense of them passing the day before they passed, and not from a disease, from a car accident or things like that. So I was getting a lot of information. And then I decided to learn tarot as a method of divination when I was, 18, 20, and I spent a lot of time studying. Then I went into a lot of different other methods of divination, all kinds throughout, my whole life. But I did normal, what you would call regular jobs, corporate jobs, regular jobs. I never had this as my full-time job because it was a hobby, it was a passion. But as time went by, I was using it a lot for myself, a lot for friends and family, neighbors. And there was a point that I turned it into kind of a little side hustle. Okay. And after uh, that, it started to grow. And then, of course, we got the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and in 2020. And that's when I decided to turn this into full time. So I made a big move and I turned my passion into a job, basically. The challenge was, can I sustain this as a job? And I did. And recently, so that was in 2020, and then we're about 5 years now, and I've started to advertise and promote a lot more. So I appreciate obviously your invitation for that. But you're right. I thought maybe, oh, what if I start a YouTube channel? And I started with predictions. And the first video I made, like, I think it's like close to 40,000 views, which for me, coming out of nothing, literally
Yeah.
nothing, first video was a big shock. And so I've been kind of, meeting more people because of that, getting more visibility. But also, I believe this field, you keep learning. It's something very humble because, of course, you're not always right. Um, you are receiving messages. There's a fair amount of free will, of course. Thank God we have free will. Not everything is written, right?
Yeah.
So you you have to deal with, something that gives you a lot of humility is understanding how you can help people, giving them the directions, what you see for them, but also knowing that we all have our ability to change a direction.
I love that story. When you talk about you getting these visions, right? You know what's going to happen. How does it come to you? Is it like you see it, you hear it? Is it a voice? How do you know that you're not imagining things?
So my main clair, is the clairsentience. So I just know, I feel, I know, I have a strong sense of an information. But sometimes it gets confusing with the audio side because the information would come that I'm not sure if I felt it or if I heard it. So there are
Right.
times where, and the information just comes as a flash. And that is usually when I would be more relaxed. It's kind of silly, but washing the dishes, because water is a very strong intuitive element, and so you wash the dishes, you're relaxed, you don't think of anything, you have the water element, and you would get, information. People sometimes joke, "Oh, I was in the shower and I thought about this." Well, yeah, because you have the water element here. You're relaxed and you have the water element.
Right. Get it. Speaking about water, I had a dream today and I dreamt about me and my family being in an apartment and the entire apartment getting flooded. Now, this is just a dream, right? Like if how would you take this? What does it mean?
Well, there's different elements of symbolism. One of them talks about a feeling of being overwhelmed. A flood is overwhelming. So I would check to see, do you have a lot going on in your life? Do you have a lot on your plate? Then the water element ties to emotions. So are you in a phase where emotionally it's been a little bit like a roller coaster? And then the water element, like I said, is the intuition. So is it because you're deepening your connection with spirit? So, in a dream, there could be so many interpretation. I just gave three.
Hmm, interesting. I think all three make sense because there is a lot going on. It's overwhelming. It could be all the three. Makes sense.
Yes.
So, when you talk about divination, what is the difference between tarot cards, oracle, and then I also this is the first time I've read it. I've not heard of the what this is, but Lenormand. Is am I
Hmm.
pronouncing it right? Okay. What is the
Yes.
difference between all three?
Okay. So divination is usually using a tool to help you guide your intuition. So I would say that the first difference in divination is people moments where you use tools or no tools, right? You can be a direct channeler. You channel message. Like I was saying, sometimes I get flashes. No tool. The tool is me, right? Then you could use different tools to aid gaining information. So one of them is the tarot, which is the most famous, and that is a very, I would say, set up and a rigid system that is created with 78 cards and a set of four different elements, and it has its structure, and each card has its own meaning. Actually, I have created a tarot deck, so I'm gonna share here. It's called the Mystical Tarot of the Saints. So I wanted to share. That's the one that I created for myself because there's like a gazillion tarot decks out there, but I wanted to create one that resonate with me. So that's why I created my own. So tarot decks, they're all with the same structure, but you have different themes. There's a tarot deck about pretty much anything. An oracle, it's very simple. An oracle is much more fluid. It could be any types of combination of cards. There's no rule, absolutely no rule, but there are usually cards. And so one of the name of the oracle is called Lenormand. It's a French origin, which is actually my origin. I'm French origin, and it's a deck of 36 cards. And these 36 cards are a certain way of talking. They do have different symbols that are very simple, a house, a snake. So it's not as intricate as the tarot, but it's also very practical. And then you have other divination system. I have with me runes. You might be familiar with the runes, little pieces like this that you have in a pouch, and then you pull a rune and it has a symbol. But I do use divination. I also do coffee cup reading, teacups reading.
Oh, what's
I
that?
do so basically whether it's tea or coffee, you
Hmm.
basically, it's a very old system. And I actually been to Turkey to learn with, because the coffee readings really come from Turkey, has a very strong Turkish influence. And so you would make your own coffee, you would drink the coffee, turn the cups upside down, turn it, look at the cups and the saucer and see with the coffee grinds symbols, animals, messages, letters, and they would have signification for you. And the tea leaves, if you prefer tea to coffee, would be exactly the same thing. And so it is actually very, very accurate. It's a very old method, but there's like hundreds of types of divination. You can look at the clouds and see symbols. You can look at the bowl of water and move the water and see symbols. Anything that is basically translate your intuition into a symbol.
Interesting. Is there any sort of scientific backup to this, the whole, why this works? Is there anything that science can tell?
I feel that we're getting more and more into the connection between the science, the esoteric world, quantum physics,
Yeah.
the third eye. Um, I think the way that I would say it is looking at intuition as a sixth sense. We have
Mm.
our senses. You see, we hear, we taste, we smell. It's all connected. Um, I also believe that we all have intuition.
Yeah.
And so it's like a muscle. To me, it's like going to the gym. You go to the gym very, very often. You basically build muscle. You practice this intuition, you're building this muscle. But they're all connected. So, for example, I've always been, but I'm more and more sensitive to the sense of smell, because it's not a divination. I don't use it to make predictions, but I can smell more if I'm like in public transportation or at the grocery store. I could smell much more than I used to.
So, what does it mean? Let's say you smell, I mean, does it mean that if you don't like the smell of someone, there's something wrong with that person?
No, no, no. It's just like because someone who develops that sixth sense basically gets the benefit of getting all their other senses augmented. So you feel more. So, like I said, like I don't use the sense of smell in my divination. Some people probably do, but it's not what I'm doing. But I get the benefit, quote unquote benefit, because there are certain smells that I don't like and they come 5 times, 10 times more. So, you're being more sensitive as a sense to the outside world. You're getting more information. You're feeling more from a person that you're meeting or from something that you're reading that gives you a sense. For example, I remember in December reading this article about this new virus,
Mm.
and I'm like, and I got like an immediate like, okay, this is gonna be really, really, really bad. I remember I was working, during the pandemic, and I was managing a small team, and we had to go work from home, obviously.
Yeah.
And people said, "Oh, someone asked me, are we gonna pack this and prepare to come back in a week?" And I looked at the person. I said, "No, we're not coming back before 2 years." And the
Hmm.
person looked at me like crazy. But but it was just information that I was getting.
Hmm.
And it's also I mean, I think that's like a lot of discussion about it, but there's a lot of benefits of having those abilities or and working those skills. But it's also annoying at times of knowing and
Hmm.
and having a regular conversation with someone, and someone say, "Why do you say that? What?
Hmm.
How do you back up what you say?" And it's kind of silly to say, "Well, I just know." So
Yeah.
I just know. And it makes so much sense to me, but I understand that for a lot of people it doesn't make sense. Well, you just know. Well, that's not a justification.
In Osho, there's a book of Osho, and he says that animals, they pick their mates based on smell. And human beings stopped using their sense of smell, which is why they're not able to pick their mates correctly anymore.
That's very funny. You know, there's an Osho tarot. You were asking me about tarot. There's
Yeah.
an Osho tarot that's actually very, very good.
How can tarots be different? I don't understand because I mean, like, how can you? Because I tried to look into tarots and try to, play with it, but then I saw there were like so many different tarots, and it's like, how can you study this? Because it's like different. Everyone seems to. One person seems to have tarots of animals, then the other one you
Yes.
seem to have. So how does that work?
Well, it is the tarot. There is usually like it has its own rules. You know, it's 78 cards. You have some sort of cups, some sort of coins, some sort of sword, and some sort of wands, and also a set of 22 cards that are called majors. As long as you follow those rules, artists can create whatever they want within that framework. So it's a little bit like, let's just say, to make an analogy, a type of movie needs to have, a beginning of this amount of minutes, three sections, three episodes, an ending of 5 minutes, and
Hmm.
it needs to be this and that in the movie. And let's say the movie is tarot. As long as you fit into that framework, a movie or a tarot, then it's called a movie or a tarot. So it's a framework, but within that framework, you can use creativity. So you can. There's always going to be, for example, the cups where represents the emotion, the first card, the ace of cups, but the ace of cups that represents an emotion, there's many ways to represent it.
Right.
Yes. And yet there are some studies that are called comparative tarot, the same way that you have comparative literature, and they
Hmm.
compare what is the ace of cups in my tarot versus the ace of cups in someone else's tarot.
Okay. So, have you asked a question and then looked at the answer that comes in a tarot versus an oracle versus the
Mhm.
Lenormand, and the answers are the same?
I wouldn't say the answers are the same, but usually the answers complement each other to create more of an answer.
Hmm.
Um, and you have to look at the symbols and interpret the symbols with your intention. For example, a lot of tarot, but oracles, have the sun as one of their symbols, or the sun. So
Yeah.
the sun, usually speaking, if you just feel it has a very positive meaning, the sun, it's happiness, it's warm, it's nice. But the sun can burn.
Hmm.
So you have to go into all the layers of the meaning.
Hmm.
It's really
So
not that
the
simple. Yes.
so
If
the
you, I mean,
interpretation would be different based on the person who's doing it.
yes. That's why, I mean, you can find nowadays a lot of AI based readings.
Yeah, yeah. I That's what I've
So,
seen roots and everything on in apps where they do it.
so they have the meaning of the sun, which is usually a sense of positive news and blah blah blah. But are they going to get able to not only that, but get the layers and the particular application of one of the layer to the to the reading? Probably not. That's the difference between an AI reading and a reading made by a person. The emotions, the intuitions, you don't have that by a computer. But I'm not saying it's bad, but it's just basic, and you might miss a big interpretation. There's a risk of not getting right. That risk is also true with a reader, but It's just the difference.
No, that makes sense because I think you can use these apps just to get an introductory thing. Because if it wasn't for these apps, I wouldn't have known about what a tarot or an oracle or a ruse would look like. But you can use it for 1 or 2 days. Maybe the first day it would resonate. The second, third day onwards, it doesn't really resonate so much.
Yes, and there's also the combination of cards. There's so many aspects. I always say it's an art, it's not a
Yeah,
science.
yeah,
And you a little bit of a stereotype sometimes for clients or consultants where they feel like it's a little bit like the vending machines. You put a dollar in and then at the end you get your answer and that's the right answer. It's not a vending machine. It doesn't work that way. And there's still different. What I found fascinating is every culture in the world has had its own divination at one point or another. The way that in the Arab culture you look at divination is different from a European culture, different from an American culture, different from an Asian culture. And so that I think it's fascinating to see how our cultures reflect in our divination systems because wanting to know the future is as old as the universe been. Every civilizations has been wanting to know the future.
yeah. If you give a prediction to a client, does it mean it's written in stone?
No, because of free will. I believe in free will, and sometimes it's hard to kind of understand. So I'm going to try to explain kind of the difference here. Is that first of all, when you do the reading, you're seeing what are the energies that are currently around you? Where are those energies taking you? Here is the direction that you're currently on. If you do nothing, this is very likely how things gonna happen. Now, you might decide to make a change along the way, and then the outcome will be different. So that is one answer. And then also, I believe that I don't believe that when we come on Earth, everything is written, right? But certain lessons are. So your free will, I like to say that, well, you have free will. If you go to the ice cream shop, you can decide whether you get vanilla or chocolate. Right? That's your free will, right? It's not written in stone, right? You
Yeah.
as a human can decide. But let's just take another topic. For example, a lesson where you need to learn how to listen more. That lesson will very likely manifest. So it will be a theme of and it might translate into different path that you're taking because you have to learn this lesson. And what happens, it's if you say, oh, okay, I know that I need to listen more. So yeah, okay, I've learned my lesson. That doesn't work. You have to demonstrate with your actions that you've learned the lesson. Otherwise, the universe, God, will send you the same lesson but in bigger and bigger ways. That's why you see a lot of people that are stuck in the same pattern.
Yeah.
I mean, like for example, you see someone who has problems in the love area because, for example, they keep attracting people that are not available for one reason or another. And so, well, that's like a lesson, like recognize the pattern. Something is happening here that you're attracting this type of person. This is probably a sign that you need to work on your self-worth, your confidence, and knowing your value and making, you know, different changes in your energy so you attract a different type of person. That I think in the romance area this is obvious, but it's also very true in jobs. There are people who always attract jobs, sometimes in toxic environment, or jobs where they have to work so many hours and they don't understand why. Every time I change job because I just can't take it anymore and I get into a same situation. So that's like a red flag. Like, okay, you see, that's the difference between free will and destiny.
Hmm. It's reminding me in the movie Matrix. Neo comes and sits next to, I think there's a lady, the oracle reader, there's a psychic lady there, and she comes and sits next to him. No, he comes and sits next to her, and she hands him the candy. And then he's asking her, "You already know, don't you, that whether I'm going to take this candy or not?" And she says, "I do." So then why are you asking me if I'm going to take the candy? Because she's like, so the response is, "You have already made a choice. You came here to figure out why you made that choice."
Mm.
So we keep doing, so yeah, correct. We are repeating the same patterns in the relationship. And we probably meet with a psychic person or someone to, or we try to figure out, why am I picking the same person? What is it that I need to figure out or fix in myself? So it just reminded me of that when you spoke about it.
Yes. And it's also sometimes there's a very interesting interconnection between a psychic, a therapist, a counselor, a friend, because, I feel like it's all connects in some ways.
Yeah.
The psychic uses, psychology. The therapist uses intuition. The friend might use both.
Yeah, that's right. And whoever comes into your life would come in based on what you need at the point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you are getting help, like we are getting help. We are getting the signs. Sometimes I feel like it happens to a lot of us. We're facing a situation, it's difficult, we're looking for an answer, and we are like at the grocery store, and a situation happens, and someone tells us something that applies so much to our situation. Where did that come from? It's a
Yeah.
message from the universe.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, since you are psychic, is your life super easy? Because you already probably know what's going to happen. You probably know West $1 million.
Well, no, I wish it would be that simple. I think you have a little bit of a leg up because when I make decisions, I try to look ahead to
Hmm.
see would that be a good decision or not. But you don't apply that to everything. I mean, a simple thing. You were very kind to invite me on your podcast. I didn't pull cards or I didn't try to tune in. How would that be a good thing or not? Because you know what? Like life is also to be enjoyed and made of experiences. You don't want to know everything ahead of time. And then also it's sometimes hard to read for yourself because
Hmm.
when you read, you have to go to a certain place where the result doesn't matter as much to you. You're not emotionally tied.
Yeah.
But if someone comes to me and said, you know, I'm fighting with my husband, will we stay together or divorce? Then this question is something very difficult to read for yourself. Because, I mean, of course, your mind probably wants one or the other. And if you see something differently, then you'll be very disappointed. So you're biased.
Yeah. 100%, 100%. Because I try to practice channeling where I sit and, ask questions and answer it. And whenever I answer it, I just don't take it that seriously. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. But when it's like another person who comes and says the same thing, that's when oh, is it? It must have already been something that I said, but there's always the bias that comes through, like you said, when we are doing these for ourselves. So, Nate, I wanted to understand from you, what were some of the key predictions that you noticed coming up in the next 5 years, 5 to 10 years? I think they say that 2025 to 2030 is like huge, something major is going to happen. So, what were some of the predictions that came up?
One prediction that I feel is pretty global is I really felt like in 2025 there would be um, some sort of virus. And
Oh,
I know
no.
no one wants to hear that. It doesn't feel like a pandemic, but it feels like, and this is where it gets hard, right? You get additional information, but that don't complete make a story. But the characteristics is I feel like it touches food or the environment, so the air. I feel like it will create some shortages of food. I feel also that it will bring some restrictions. Will it be as strong as COVID? No, but I see it as being something quite serious. I am not sure. People ask me since then, is it the bird flu? Because
Mm.
I'm not certain, but bird flu shows some of those characteristics. So I feel that, yes, there is a concern there. Um, I feel that we will get um, some sort of acknowledgement, and most likely from the US government, of an ET or UFO type, an acknowledgement of a ET or a UFO activity, which when you think about it, we're not far from that because there's already been some acknowledgements
Yeah,
to the
there's already
US Congress.
whistleblowers coming
Yes,
out.
so that I feel, but it will be more officially acknowledged. And what does that mean? Um, I have a number of predictions by country. I've made a special video on Japan. Actually, before I made that video, I saw that there would be an earthquake, mini tsunami in the south of Japan, and that prediction already happened. There was already one. I see a massive shift in the US with the Silicon Valley, companies leaving the Silicon Valley, moving to other parts of the US. Um, I'm trying to think of others that are more on the global scale so everyone can relate. Otherwise, it's by country. What we see, I mean, obviously, is as a general, there's a big shift in the political landscape, in how people feel. I feel like we all feel like we're at the end of a cycle of humanity and we're about to get on a journey to another cycle. That is something that I think we all can feel like the old model feels very, very old, and everything we're trying to create kind of a new way.
Did you look into the LA fires and why this happened or who was behind it?
I looked into the LA fires. I didn't feel that someone put them out there. I felt like it was literally weather. But I also have to say that um, two things. One is that it comes with a certain energy of purification, fire being purification.
Mm.
And so I think we need to reflect on it's removing a certain excess, right? It's removing a certain um, maybe extreme between an area where there were a lot of very, very luxurious places and houses, and people also who were homeless, and differences. And so you feel that maybe in a way, like when things get too much in balance with wealth inequality, there is maybe a rebalancing. I'm not sure it's that, but I've been thinking about it. The other aspect, I was more troubled where when I was starting to look at those fires, I saw um, some people that were happy about it. And I was very troubled by that. And so I do feel that to some degree, some people might benefit from the situation. And it was an energy that I didn't like. But it made me think that I would not suggest that humans started them, but they seem to benefit. There seems
From
like
that.
someone from, yes, and I have not gone into who, but I feel like I could see behind the curtain people that were, I hate to say, but celebrating.
Yeah. There was, I heard from the other psychic channels where they talk about that there is a 2030 agenda of 15-minute cities that they're trying to come up with. So for that, they wanted to clear up the space and like things like that.
It's very disturbing to see when you see in your cards and your nutrition people that are celebrating something that is so awful. But clearly, there's benefit. People will benefit from it. Some people will.
Yeah, they would. I heard about, do you know about the shadow government and, the Illuminati? What is your take on that?
I don't really have an opinion about it. I've heard about it. If you ask my opinion, I'm someone who's very pragmatic and concrete, and I'm always careful with some theories. Some people could say conspiracy theories, because I don't like to get into that. And so I'm not saying that that's what it is, but I like to see by myself. I like to be very pragmatic, despite being very intuitive. So, because I believe in evidential psychic ability, where we should try to find evidence into what we say. This is not just predictions. It needs to be analyzed to see if they come or not. And when I do a reading, when I do a prediction, I always try to find an information that the person could validate, so that they can validate the whole reading. So you have people that it's the first time they meet you, or it's the first time they have a reading, and naturally they come with suspicion or doubt, and I don't blame them. I think it's a natural thing to do. But I like to give them something that they can confirm and validate, because then they will trust the prediction. So for example, someone says, I'm not happy at my job, will things improve? I like to give them information about their job. I say, well, you're working for a very large company and your boss is a male, and you started about 2 years ago. And they're like, oh yeah, that's true, that's true, that's true. Then I'm gonna believe what you say next. And so I feel as a psychic that it's our duty to try to find information that the person can validate, so then we build the trust quickly.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. In social media, also, you have a whole video on YouTube, but then you make these short reels and shorts. Those short videos have to be very highly relatable. That is how it goes viral. There's a content strategies. So you create something that they will, oh, yeah, like how you said, yes, that's right. I've worked for 2 years, etc. So then they click on that, and that would redirect them to the main video where finally they get to see the full content. So
Yes,
it makes sense. What have you seen when it comes to um, uh, is there going to be another cataclysm or a World War III? Have you seen anything like that coming up in your predictions?
I'm not seeing a World War III, but I feel like more regional wars.
Okay.
More regional wars. Um, I know, for example, that we are, currently with a peace deal in the Middle East. Um, I wish I had better news, but I don't see these peace deals staying as it is.
What about any economic or financial predictions?
Mhm. I do feel that in most countries, it's a very slow growth in terms of the economy. Like, I don't see the global economy growing. I actually feel that in certain countries, it's going to be regressing. Like, for example, I see the Chinese economy having difficulties, for example. I feel like it's going to be very slow in Europe, in Canada, in Australia, in the US as well. And I feel like there will be a moment of drop in the US stock market, not as bad as 2018, but I feel that there will be a significant correction.
Do you believe that we are going through an ascension right now?
What I believe, which leads to that, is that I feel that people are becoming more and more connected, spiritual, intuitive, all of this. Uh, it's interesting also that in my practice, wherever I practice, it used to be 99% of the clients were females, women, right? 99, 95%. And now in the last year and this year, I see more men, which I
Wow.
found very fascinating. Like, maybe, yes, maybe a 5% shift. And I think this 5% is getting from 5 to 10% shift, which you might think it's small, but it's a big change. And I feel that this is, if we go by stereotype, we feel that men sometimes are more practical and women are more, what should we say, in tune with feelings and emotions and intuition, as a stereotype. Um, but I feel like this is also indicating that this is expanding across all people. And actually, I wouldn't keep this stereotype. I just feel like some people are just more on the emotional intuition side, some people are more practical. But I seeing more, whether they're male or female. But I feel that we're seeing this shift where the more practical people are opening up themselves up to intuition and spirituality. Another proof of that is I have more and more small business owners that are coming to me for readings, and they don't want to talk about their personal lives. They just want to talk business.
Well, it's still it's a good start. I think this is amazing because it's not, you might think it's just 2 years, but actually we've been in this sort of, we've suppressed our intuition for thousands and thousands of years. So it's an amazing, amazing start that they are beginning to open up. And even beginning to open up means they're finally saying, okay, maybe I don't know enough. So that ego is coming down.
Yes, and maybe, I think I love it that people, they're making a business decision or logical decision, but they call a psychic to validate their thinking. They feel that they made the decision, but they get the benefit from someone who doesn't know them, doesn't know the situation, and tell them, yes, I should go A or B, I should go with B.
Hmm. You
Or
know,
very often, sorry, very often I see that in hiring decision, someone say, I should I hire, this person or this person? And then I'm able to tell them, well, this is what I see if you hire this person. This is what I see if you hire this person. And very often they said, yes, we were about to hire this person.
wow. You know how this comes across? It's the same thing that I mentioned earlier. So in the beginning, I'm like curious about, okay, what is this channeler going to say about my life, or what is he going to predict? So you book a lot of these sessions with them, and then what they say seems to be what I already knew. And then what happens is then I begin to realize that whatever they know, I already know. So I start trusting in myself and I start empowering myself. So it's coming, it feels like that. We're all beginning to trust in your intuition.
I absolutely agree with you. It's like people say it resonates. That means that they felt and you felt what they felt.
Yeah.
Um, so, because it's tapping from the same source.
Yeah. Have you, when you looked into predictions or probably soul contracts of prominent figures like Elon Musk, Charles, King Charles, Prince Williams, Beyonce, or the controversial people like Diddy. Have you looked into any prominent figures like that?
I have looked at Trump
Oh, you've looked
because,
at Trump. Yeah, he's
yes, because
very,
obviously the most charismatic man in the world, whether you love or hate
yeah,
him,
yeah,
is
yeah.
the most charismatic person. And you start to see some themes that are coming up. A lot of and things that once again we already know what happens in his childhood, what happens in this family. You know, it's undeniable that a love or hate him, there's a sense of luck that is very present in his chart. And I'm not an astrologer, but in his tarot or whatever you want to say chart, you see that this is someone who is conditioned a certain way, and so it's kind of a fascinating person to analyze that way.
So, from your analysis or your readings, does he have good intentions?
I I'm certainly biased because I am not a fan. Let's just put it this way. But I I I don't believe that he has good intentions. But when you do a reading, you have this is also difficult. Like I was saying, removing your bias. So I have a bias, but I'm trying to use a pure form of divination when I get into his energy, just because I'm trying to understand him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Talking about runes, is it how do you? What is the origin of runes, and what do those symbols represent?
Hmm. So runes, I actually have a bag here. There's stories about runes coming from the Celtic or the Vikings, and there are little piece right now on. You can get them on wood. You can get them, on piece of wood. Back in the days, I believe that they were using, pieces of wood from a tree and then marking them, you know, and then each of them would have a meaning, and then you would just pick, you ask a question and you pick one or two or three, and then they give you, the answer. So but the origins are Celtic, or from in northern Europe with the Vikings.
Can we do a reading now by, I'm not sure how this works, so you could like let me know. If you let's say you pick a card, is that how it is, or you have to ask a question? How does it work?
Usually it's a question, but the question could be as wide open as, what do we need to know about?
Good question. Yeah.
So you just have to say, what is the about?
Yeah. Let's say, I mean, whoever tunes into this video, is there something that they need to know?
And then what I will ask you is, for you only, in your own head, ask a particular question for you, and then see if that resonates specifically as a little test.
Okay,
Okay?
cool.
Yes. You don't have to say it out loud. I'm not gonna ask you because it's a personal question, but do it in your own head. Yes.
Which is after you pick this for the audience, then the second question would be like the question in my head. Is it
Yes.
like that?
Okay. Yeah, we can
Oh,
do that.
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, cool.
So for the collective audience, what do we need to know? What, if you're hearing this, what do the spirits want to tell you at this time? The first card is the Ace of Swords, and this is a card of decisions. And so you might feel that you might have to make a certain decision in your life at the moment. You may be evaluating a couple options, but a decision is coming soon, or you're waiting on a decision. The next card is the Nine of Coins. This is a card of abundance. And so it is likely that this decision will bring you a material benefit. And then the Three of Cups is a celebration. And so you will be happy about your decision and celebrate it. So
Oh,
the message is that if you're hearing this and you're hesitating to make a step forward in a certain direction, the spirits are saying, do it.
wow. That's such a positive
Yes.
card. Loved it. No food shortages and no World War III. Okay. Okay, that's good. All right.
Okay,
So
let's
now
do
I'm gonna.
yours now. Yes.
Okay,
You have
fine.
your question in mind? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question.
All right. I pulled three cards, and so I'm putting the story together with the three cards. The first card I got was the Sun. It's funny because we talked about this earlier.
The sun. Yeah.
So there's a sense of a strong yes. Uh, I have the Four of Pentacles, which is a card of holding ground, holding steady. And then the Ten of Wands is a card of having a lot to think or a lot of burden. And so, in other words, I feel that whatever you're questioning, it feels like it may be a challenge, there may be some difficulties, but you have the strength and the resilience, and the final outcome will be very positive. But the spirits want you to keep going, because whatever you want to happen or you're asking will happen in a positive way, and you will get it through.
You know what the question was? What is the what is the direction that the podcast is going in, and what am I supposed to
Oh,
do? Because I had been looking into, okay, how do I take it? So I began the podcast last year, and now I'm completing 1 year, and I want to take it to the next step. So I'm like, okay, do I check with sponsors? What do I do? How? So it is overwhelming. You don't know where to start. What is the
yes.
next thing? So hold the ground. This is what I got in today's meditation too, which is, like, don't get overwhelmed, just keep going, and then things would happen. So,
Also now that you shared your question, is that the final outcome was the sun, which is positive, but the sun is also clarity and visibility. You see under the sun. So the inherent challenge is how you expand the audience and the visibility of the podcast, right? That's the matter at heart. And then we can continue to read and ask spirit for an advice, because I want to give you a
advice.
practical. Right now, you feel somewhat good because you feel that even though it's a challenge, we will have challenges. It should get more visibility, but how? What is the advice? So I'm going to use those cards here and I'm going to ask. So a couple information here. One is that you see, I see these three. This tree is the natural growth. So there's definitely a sense of organic growth and word of mouth that you need to encourage. So, for example, how do you get a listener to increase their word of mouth and telling a friend? How do you incentivize people to tell their friends? Because word of mouth is very important. How do they share the podcast to others? That's the word of mouth. And then I got the tower. This tower here talks about usually a company or larger organizations. And so to me, I would intuit, can you get maybe sponsors or can you look at partnership with other large organizations that can help you get more visibility?
Yeah, that is a question that I've been asking too. Hmm,
Okay.
interesting. Okay. That was amazing. That was crazy to get the psychic. You know what? It kind of I got a little bit scared because I'm like, okay, is there going to be some negative things that's going to come out? Then I would keep
Oh,
thinking about the negative ones. Okay. So do negative bad readings come out when you do for the clients?
of course, of course. Will I get
Okay,
the
okay.
job? No.
Oh no.
Will I get the job? No. I mean, it is very difficult. And that's why I mentioned psychology, because you have people who come and said, is my partner cheating on me? And so you have to, you have to share what you see because that's part of your ethics, but you have to do it in a way where there's just so much psychology, because you're not just going to leave the person to ask with the information, but you have to give them a path forward, whatever that is. They need to leave with a sense of how to resolve my problem. The problem, yes, the problem is the cheating, but the problem is their relationship, their love life, how they feel in, like there's just so much bigger discussions to have. And so people come with that very, direct question, but there's just a lot to unpack and look at how we can help them.
When you spoke about the question that they asked, which is, is the partner cheating? All I can think about after you say the answer is negative Google reviews. You know, like no more psychic. Oh my
Oh yeah, but
God.
if you come with a question, you need to be open to the answers. And it's like, of course, someone who comes to a psychic, they want to have a positive answer. They come with the hope that they will say, no, I don't see this problem. But sometimes, it's not clear cut. It could be because, I mean, we're psychics. We're not God. We're not, a good accuracy of 80, 90% is considered a good accuracy, right? And so you also have to take what the psychic says with a grain of salt. Maybe the psychic, you have to be careful. For example, I see your husband and is spending a lot of time right now with an older woman, and the person would say, yes, is at home, is at his parents' family, and he spends a lot of time with his mom. So I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, this
Yeah.
is, you have to take the words for what they are and not jump to conclusions. This is what I see.
Yeah. True. I mean, it could be the mom. I didn't think about the mom. So
To
it
be
was a
honest, it
very,
has happened, yes, many
yeah,
times. So, and that's why I will never say, oh, yes, he's cheating with a woman that's older than him. I would say, I see him spending time with this person. Do you know what that person could be? And let's just try to resolve this together. And it's like a detective. You look at clues, you look at, is it someone with dark hair? Is it okay? Well, I know who this person is. That's like his mom or a friend, or so you have to be. Sometimes I say like it's like being an archaeologist, where you like look very, very carefully, and then
you
little
don't
by little
overlook
you
the
remove the
details.
dust of the thing you're about to unearth, because you hold such a big responsibility.
Yeah, it does. One psychic reading, if it goes wrong, then it could potentially put you through depression for the next so many days or years, whatever. You could think about it. I mean, I had one person tell me so many years back a prediction about me, and I still hold on to it, like about what's going to happen. I still hold on to it, and I wish he didn't tell the negative one, but I still hold on to that negative prediction, and I wish he didn't say that, even if that is what is going to happen. So it's a big responsibility that is there for people who are doing this. Nate, you have also written a book too, right? Can you
Yes.
tell us about your book, Secrets of the Mystical Tarot of the Saints?
Yes, so it is a book that goes with this deck here, which is the tarot deck I was reflecting earlier. And the book explains basically two things: the meaning of the cards. Those were the cards that I was using earlier. And you can see that the sun is playing with me. So sometimes it's on the right side, the left side, sometimes it's not there. Anyways, sorry for that, by the way. But you see those cards. And so those cards, they they have a magical power because they can be used for divination purposes. But the book is called The Secrets because you can use the cards for manifestation. And so an example would be, for example, the I would use one of the cards here, the Ace of Cups. I was referring to these cards. Like this is the first card in the series of cups. Cups represents emotion. So this card
Mm-hmm.
is the Ace
Yeah.
of Cups. It's a beautiful card, and so it represents one being a new beginning. The cup and the water represent love, and so for someone who wants to manifest love, I would recommend, for example, and explain in the book how to use this card, put it maybe on a desk and on a small table, on an altar, and then put a candle or put an offering, but use the power of the card as an element you will manifest. And you can do that, I mean, here is the Two of Cups, meaning I'm gonna say here, like, yes, meeting someone new. Uh, Saint Michael, for example, Archangel Michael, is an energy that I use, people can use for justice. Anytime you need, justice to come and help you, you could do that with Archangel Michael and put it somewhere with a white candle. You do, your own type of prayer or affirmation, anything with intention. So basically, the book, which is called The Secrets of the Mystical Tarot of the Saints, it's on Amazon, and you basically you can use the cards, but not just for divination, to actually make things happen in your life, to manifest with your life, putting the attention using the card. If it's for money, the Ace of Coin, you see you're receiving money. So it's very powerful.
Yeah, when you keep seeing, I mean, when you talk about it from a scientific perspective too, I have these vision boards in front of me. So if I keep looking at something that I want manifested into my life, it would change my subconscious. And then once my subconscious changes, my conscious mind would work towards making that reality happen based on what my subconscious is giving. So makes sense.
Lately, I've heard we hear a lot about the law of attraction,
Yeah.
but I've been hearing more about this concept of the law of assumption. Have you heard about it?
Oh, I've not. What is that?
It's
Interesting.
kind of interesting concept where It's the law of assumption because you assume that it's gonna happen. So, for example, you assume that you want to be married, and so you assume that you are going to get married at that time, and so you're starting to somewhat plan things like if it's going to happen to make it happen you know so for example, you would ask venues for a quote.
Hmm.
I'm
Right.
planning a wedding July's. Can you And so it's kind of interesting because I've heard from clients that they got a lot of very good results with this. You just have to assume that it's going to happen, and then you act as if it's actually going to happen, and it does happen.
That's very interesting. I think I've also heard of this where in order for something to happen, you act like it's already happened and then it would happen.
Yes, it's kind of the same thing. So you dream about a new job, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to buy, a little bag for going to work. And so, because I'm starting my new job.
Yeah, yeah, true. Very true. It works definitely. It's something that even for the podcast too, when I wanted to start it as well, it's like you get the mic first, you start talking about it, you put up the whole thing as if it's already happened. So the law of assumption is very interesting and something that everyone, if you try it, it's definitely going to happen. I've done it ton of times in my life as well. So, Nate, we are coming to the end of the podcast, and I think this has been fascinating. It's the first time I got someone who does tarot cards, oracle cards, all of these readings,
Oh,
and
wonderful.
yeah, I usually bring channelers, mediums, etc. But this is the first time I brought someone, and I got to learn a lot. So it's my introduction to the whole thing. And thank you so
Wonderful.
much.
I'm so
Thank,
glad. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Nate, can you tell us where we can find more about you and the work that you do?
Yes, the information you have on my YouTube channel, it's called Nathe, the Third Wish. You can find links there to book appointments. I don't know if within the podcast you put some of those links.
Absolutely. In the show notes, guys, I would be putting all of the links that Nate has mentioned, even the tarot cards that we spoke about that is available on Amazon. It would all be linked.
Fantastic. And the cards are also available on Etsy. And again, the name is Mystical Tarot of the Saints. And yes, the YouTube channel is Third Wish Nathe, Nathe.
Nice. Awesome. Nate, I end with my podcast with something called the Cosmic Close, where I ask two questions. So the first question is, how may we enjoy lasting peace and happiness?
How may we enjoy peace and happiness?
Yeah, lasting, forever lasting, from your perspective.
Oh, my immediate answer is gratitude.
Ah, love it.
Because we have to always be grateful for what we have. And the more grateful we have for what we have, the more we bring abundance.
Love that. The second question is, what do you think is the nature of our reality?
I have a point of view that out of all the different places that we could be as beings in this universe, in the big, big, big universe, the Earth is the most challenging, the most difficult environment, which means that we made a conscious decision to come here and face through so many challenges and difficulties. We made the decision to be in the most challenging places in the whole universe. It's really hard. It's really hard here. There's a lot of positive things, but it's really hard. It's a constant challenge. We are constantly being asked to adjust, be flexible, adapt. And so I think we need to remember ourselves that we made the decision to live through difficult times, personal or for the world. And so why? We made that decision. We have to make the best of it. We have to learn the lessons because to start with, we make the decision to come here.
Yeah, I love that answer. Nate, do you have any final advice for us?
It's not mine, but it's an advice that I saw as a comment on my channel, and I'm making it mine, but it's not mine, so I need to give this person credit. They're talking about the news cycle and social media, and they're saying observe, don't absorb.
It's so important. Love that. Nate, thank you so much once
Thank you.
again for coming on our podcast and spending time with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. The pleasure was mine.